Welcome to the video, guys. It seems the Remainers have still not given up on keeping freedom of movement among a variety of other things. We all know they absolutely despise Brexit and have tried their hardest to stop it, as we saw almost daily last year from a variety of different Remainer groups and politicians. Now, these Remainers who have got more front than a double-decker bus have come up with something they are calling an alternative mandate, which is just insanity, I'm sure you would all agree. But Labourists are reporting on it today and going through some of the so-called demands in this alternative mandate. Labour MPs back launch of post-Brexit demands alternative mandate, which I'm sure you would all agree is rather laughable considering the Labour Party have absolutely no mandate, as do every single one of the MPs that are part of this stupid plot. They have kind of accepted Brexit at least, but they still don't want Brexit. They still want the things that the people of this country did not vote for. In fact, they voted the complete opposite way to make sure those things were never a reality. Labour MPs Clive Lewis, Kate Ossamore and Nadia Whitmore are among those backing the launch of a new campaign, Alternative Mandate, that sets out a left-wing post-Brexit vision. Campaign group Another Europe is Possible, which organised within Labour to oppose Brexit and promote a fresh referendum before the 2019 general election, has unveiled the new initiative today. The Alternative Mandate has put forward a list of demands on the ongoing Brexit negotiations that will determine the UK's future relationship with the EU and whether there is a no-deal scenario, which I'm sure has got you all laughing there because the so-called Alternative Mandate means less than toilet paper. Hold on a minute, I might have to print it off and wipe my ass with it. It means that little. The demands cover 13 areas of policy, from international coordination on the coronavirus crisis, on tackling the climate crisis, to human rights and trade negotiations. The group is asking for continued British membership of the European Medicines Agency, 3 movement, UK net zero target of 2030, no loss of rights for workers, and protection of the Human Rights Act. Observing that Brexit happened in parts because of a crisis of democracy, the campaigners also call for broader commitments such as a written constitution, proportional representation for elections, and votes at 16. Now, I would settle for a written constitution, but proportional representation is no better than the current system we find ourselves in, and votes at 16 is just complete lunacy, if you ask me, and the majority of the country. At 16, you barely know your arsehole from your earhole, let alone what's going on in the world, that is for sure. Just because you might have a few 16-year-old activists who wish they could vote, thinking they would actually make a difference, that doesn't mean that most 16-year-olds know or care about anything to do with politics. The only thing people should be taught at 16 about politicians is, if they open their mouth, the chances are they are probably lying. That is an invaluable bit of information, if you ask me. The alliance of figures behind the move include 5 Labour MPs, Plaid Cymru's Huw Williams, Green Party politicians, the TSSA, Manuel Cortez, and the General Secretary of the BFAWU, which, let me tell you, is not the complete list of lunatics that they have on this thing. There is definitely more than that, including some that clearly suffer Trump derangement syndrome, but we'll get to that in a moment when we have a brief look through their actual alternative mandate that, like I said, might as well print off and wipe your ass with because it means less than nothing. Sarah Woolley of the Bakers Union said, "As a union, we supported Leave in the 2016 referendum, but we never backed a Brexit that would hit jobs and workers' rights, and neither did millions of Leave voters. Where is your evidence to suggest that any of that is going to happen? It sounds to me like you went balls deep on Remainer Project Fear and literally believed every word they were belt feeding you. The government is hell-bent on using Brexit to deregulate the economy and attack workers, blaming migrants for the consequences. Now, I actually haven't heard the Tory party blame migrants for anything. They merely said they didn't want to be part of the EU's freedom of movement, which, last I checked, is still not blaming the migrants, it's blaming the politicians in Europe, not the actual people wanting to come here. I could be wrong, there could be somewhere where the politicians are actually blaming the migrants, but I have not seen it once, and I'll tell you what, I do go through a hell of a lot of shit, but like I said, I could still be wrong. Never have I seen the Tory party saying that migrants are the cause of this or that. They are merely saying that the policies in Brussels are allowing this to occur, and the people in this country do not like it, which is a fair point, and as they said earlier, part of democracy. Now that we've left the EU, it is essential that the Labour movement and the left unites around a set of demands to defend working class people. That is fucking hilarious hearing that. The Labour Party don't give a shit about the working class, they care about themselves and the liberal elite inside the cities. Hence, why we had what happened in last year's election. Labour's Clive Lewis, who campaigned against Brexit and has the support of a wet fart, added, "We've left the EU, and it's no good pretending like this hasn't happened." Well, it's a shame you wasn't thinking that all of last year when you were running around talking all that crap about how we need to remain in the European Union and how the country is on your side, when the election showed you that is not the case. Leaving the EU is just the first stage of the Brexit process. Everything is now at stake. Unless we apply some pressure, we are going to face yet another disaster. Yep, because losing multiple elections and referendums is a complete disaster to the Labour Party. Anyone with half a brain cell would know you are clearly against the people of this country, but Labour are too stupid for that, and instead continue with complete nonsense like this. There is a real danger this government will try to use the coronavirus crisis and a very possible resulting recession as a shock doctrine. One they can use to reshape our society around a trade deal with Donald Trump. Well, that is actually something they plan to do long before the coronavirus crisis, so I don't know what you're on about. They plan to reshape our society back to how it was before we joined the European Union. We don't expect you to like it. We also don't much care. That could mean a permanently deregulated economy, lower standards, worse wages and rights. All the things we said were likely should Brexit be successful. There is almost no popular support for such an approach. Where do you get this information from? Who have you been asking? Because I would like to bet it's certainly none of my viewers or 99.9% of the country, just the lefty losers who believe in your batshit crazy agenda. This means we need to make ourselves heard, both about the dangers such a trade deal represents, but also our own alternative vision for a radically different future and what it would like. Well, that doesn't make any sense, but given it's coming from a bunch of Remainers, I am hardly surprised. And here we have the full statement from them, which essentially we just read out there in the article above. Here is a particular peach though. If our alternative vision is to succeed, we need to break from the status quo and to put forward radical politics built on internationalism and solidarity. Well, you've already lost the next election if you go down that route. Let me tell you that for nothing. So today, we are supporting the launch of the alternative mandate, a set of demands on the Brexit process, from migrant rights to trade justice, and from public health and jobs to agriculture and science funding. We are determined to offer an alternative to the vision put forward by the likes of Boris Johnson, Viktor Orban, Donald Trump, and Matteo Salvini. Achieving these goals, whether over the next 5 years or the next 50, will require a mass movement that is pluralistic and which stretches across the boundaries of parties and countries. Well, let me tell you that it is not going to happen, and your Trump and Boris derangement syndrome really does not help that, but you're never going to learn. Here we have the list of MPs who have signed it. We obviously have the Labour MPs there. Sean Berry of the Green Party, Caroline Lucas also, couple of more Green Parties, TSSA General Secretary as we heard, Sarah Woolley we actually heard from there, Ian Hodgson, John Maloney, who is the PCS Deputy General Secretary, Amelia Womack, Green Party Deputy Leader, Shaista Aziz, I probably butchered that, from the Stop Trump Coalition co-founder, which is just laughable and shows why there was Trump derangement syndrome in there, and Left Unity Principal Speaker, Joseph Healy. So it's a left-wing clusterfuck of Trump derangement syndrome and serial parliamentary losers. I'm sure that surprises absolutely none of you. But here is the actual alternative mandate. That is the statement they just had in there. We don't need to worry about any of that. Here are their actual goals. Number 1, cooperation to tackle the global health crisis. I ain't gonna bother reading through that. Literally, the title of each one is more than enough. Freedom to move, freedom to stay. You have a freedom to go fuck yourself. The people of this country do not want that. combating the climate crisis. Oh yeah, is that still a thing? I thought coronavirus ended that, and then BLM ended the coronavirus, but maybe I was wrong. Environmental protections, workers' rights, human rights, our democracy. This is a particular peach that I will read through some of it because they are just full of complete and utter shit. The Brexit process poses an unprecedented threat to our democracy. The EU Withdrawal Act contained multiple Henry VIII powers, giving the government the right to change and repeal primary legislation without a vote in Parliament. Well, he could have voted for it in Parliament and got it through, because guess what? He has an 80-seat majority, you complete and utter imbecile. Boris Johnson's prorogation of Parliament was a calculated attack on our democracy. No, it was a calculated attack on the Remainers in Parliament, showing them and the Supreme Court for the biased shitshow that they are. At the end of the day, it turned a hell of a lot of people against the Remainers and the Supreme Court, which is exactly what Dominic Cummings and Boris Johnson wanted, in my opinion. Brexit happened in part because of a crisis of democracy, and this could be a moment of democratic renewal. Well, considering you Remainers are the most anti-democratic bunch of shitweasels, I find it rather amazing to hear you talking about a crisis of democracy. Now is the time to make the proactive case for deep and lasting reform to our constitution. We will campaign for a convention or other means of mass consultation with a view to a far-reaching reform to UK constitution. A consolidated written constitution making instances like the 2019 prorogation of Parliament impossible. The other ones are consumer protections, food standards, animal rights, protecting jobs and community, not for private profit, as we would all know. These are a bunch of Marxist scumbags. Agriculture and fishing, trade justice, science research and culture funding, and international solidarity, because we want to defund the aid budget. People are struggling in the UK. Why are we sending it to other countries? Seems to be a rather strange idea to these people, when in actual fact it would be common sense and help various people in this country who are currently living in poverty. But that is the end of the batshit crazy mandate, or alternative mandate as they called it, though not one of them actually has a mandate that you could speak of. They are all a bunch of remaining losers, desperate to do what they can in regards to stopping Brexit, though we already know they stand absolutely no chance. Now, as always, I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who supports the channel, and my other social media links are down in the video description if you want to come and support me on Twitter, BitChute, and a variety of other platforms, including my second YouTube channel. As I said, all links are down in the video description.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.